welcome to Demasked. My name is Fresman, and today I'm joined by Anomaly Analysis. That is a tongue twister. How's it going today?
I'm doing very well. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. So, from what I can tell, your channel is a sort of investigative look into, I'd say, bizarre and interesting persons on the internet.
Oh yeah, so I just do documentaries on really strange people online. Usually people with some kind of problems or some kind of interesting backstory to them.
Hmm. What would you define as an anomaly in a person?
At first, it was just like people who had really strange things going on in their life. Like the first actual person I did something on was Dan Silly. He was just this guy going around downtown Los Angeles, trying to pick up a young woman, and he had all these like bizarre cult ideas in his mind that he wanted to like establish through a business. But then, I guess as it went on, it started to become more of a thing where it was I was looking at people who had kind of like a character to them, like people who, like, for example, King Cobra, or there was another guy, Jake Showcase. They seemed like to be as characters, like they had some interesting things going on in their life, but nothing malicious.
It strikes me as have you heard of a guy by the name of Darkside Phil?
Yes, I just did a documentary I uploaded yesterday on this guy named El Presidor, and him and Darkside Phil, I guess, had this feud way back in like 2015, 2016. That guy's interesting.
Well, I like when I've done some research on some of the people you've presented here, like especially King Cobra. Oh boy. And Terry Davis and his Temple OS. Whew.
Oh yes.
But with Darkside Phil, that was like my sort of diving into the deep end as far as odd online personalities, because I tried to watch a compilation of his videos. It was this is how you don't play Metal Gear Solid 3. And there was a point where it was like the 5 stages of grief, where I'm just like, there's no way he's serious. This has to be a character. I'm like, oh my god, he is. He's like this all the time.
I know, he's absolutely insane. Like I can't believe, like, I remember when I first started watching him, this was like 2009, I believe, and he was recording off of his TV, gameplay video.
Yeah, he had a camera pointed at his TV.
And then he just started evolving over time, and then at first he was kind of a decent person to watch. I started watching him especially when he was doing Assassin's Creed 2, and those were pretty entertaining. He had some actual good content there and some good comedy going on, but yeah, he just kind of fell into a spiral after a couple of years.
Well, my introductions to him were both through parody and like the quote end quote legends about him. Like he did he did a in the loosest terms a Final Fantasy gameplay video, but he never opened the game or played it.
So he just stayed at he just like, did he even have the game?
He did. From what I remember, he was just complaining for like half an hour about like his day up to that point, and like he never actually got around to playing the game, and then the video just ends.
Oh my god, that sounds like him. I want to see that Metal Gear Solid one, because the third one was my favorite game of the series probably, and I want to see how he approached it.
It's weird, man. So you know how in the older Metal Gear games, like the codec is sort of how you figure out where to go next, because the other characters are kind of like, maybe you should go up that mountain. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, that was like, especially in 3, when you had to like, there's that one part where you're in the prison and then you pretty much have to rely on the codec just to find out how to escape.
Yeah, he skips almost every conversation. It's maddening, especially at the beginning. Like, was it Zero calls him? He's like, "Shut up!" And then he backs out of the codec and he goes, "What do I do?" It's like, oh, come on, man.
That's crazy, because I played Metal Gear Solid 3 when I was like, I think 8 or 9 years old when it first came out, and even I had the attention span at the time as a child to like go through that and like listen to every codec. But this guy's in like in his 30s at this point, and he just can't
Yeah.
get through it.
Well, the one that drove me nuts is when you meet Eva in it's like a mountain shack. And you know Eva's outfit, how her shirt's kind of open and all
Oh yeah,
that.
that little like jumpsuit she has going on.
Yeah, and like it's supposed to be distracting to everybody around them, but like that's not what you're supposed to be paying attention to. And like that, like that's kind of the joke, is that it's distracting, and even like Naked Snake is like staring. But then instead of getting that joke and then listening, he's like yelling at Eva to like take her shirt off. I'm like, come on, and Eva's like, yeah, you gotta head back down the mountain. That's how you get into the base. That's how you get down the mountain. And then he's like, take your shirt off. And then the cutscene ends. He goes, all right, what do I do? Where do I go? How come she didn't tell me anything?
Oh my god, it's completely messed up.
And I couldn't get through it. I got that far. I'm like, I gotta back out. I'm gonna lose it.
And it's funny too, because I remember at that point in the game, I believe Ocelot shoots a transmitter into your back, so you could be tracked. I bet he probably lost his temper at that point too. Probably like screaming at the guys and like why they were finding him in the middle of the woods.
So, you know the end, the sniper battle.
Oh yes, I'm sure he's probably gonna be like raging at that point.
So, so like, to be fair, I guess, there are several ways you can accomplish that boss fight. There are several ways you can do it. Personally, I went what's called shotgun hunting,
Ooh, what's
where
that?
you creep through the tall grass until you find the end and just shoot him in the back of the head with a shotgun until he runs away.
I think I did something similar, because there's all these different techniques, like use the microphone and you could kind of search him out through the trees, or the one that I didn't know about was the set your PlayStation like 2 weeks ahead and he just dies of old age.
Yeah, time is what kills him. Oh, but no, of course, this guy, he doesn't sneak up. He goes running in with an assault rifle. He's like, why can't I hit him? And he's like in first person, and he's just shooting everywhere he isn't.
Oh my god.
Oh, so I skipped ahead, and I saw the fight with the boss, because I had to know. Okay. You know how the fight with the bosses like are very like close quarters, like you have to kind of sneak up on each other sort of thing?
Yeah, it's like you kind of have to play him at his own game for like the most efficient
Yeah.
way to take him out.
Exactly. But what does Darkside Phil do? Why, he takes out night vision goggles, even though it's like noon, and a sniper rifle, and lays down in the tall grass, and then complains that he can't see anything.
Oh god.
Yeah. It's like, what the hell? I can't see anything. Like, because you're... you got so many other options, but that's the one you choose.
I think that's why I liked watching him back then, because even though it was just so obvious, like the things that were like right in his face, but he just never took advantage of what the game would tell him, and he'd just go ahead and do it any way he wanted to, and it just always made for some like good rage moments.
Mm-hmm. It's... So, thus far, what has been your favorite anomaly on your channel?
Oh man, probably a tie between Fed Smoker and King Cobra. I liked King Cobra a lot. Like the time that I did that was back in September of last year, and I just remember I met up with my friend again after we haven't spoken in 3 years. My friend Haunted, he does the music for a lot of my videos, and
Sure.
me and him were watching King Cobra for like the past 10 or 11 years or so, and he's like, he liked the videos that I put out so far, like Dan Silly and Terry Davis, but he suggested that I go further with it and like make it really long. So I'm like, okay, King Cobra has a lot of stuff going on in his life. He has all these different sagas that are going on. And I
Uh-huh.
don't know, just during that time, I just felt this huge burst of creativity come up to me. Like I made a rap for that video. I did all these things for it, and I feel like that's where like I kind of like grounded my style. Like that's where everything kind of started.
Everything clicked.
Yeah, because before that, I feel like the videos were kind of like a pilot in a way, as like a test. And then I feel like my
Hmm.
style finally starts to establish around the King Cobra time.
Yeah. See, King Cobra falls under this weird, like, I wish I could surveil him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because there's this. I feel like his life is just nonstop. Like every month, there's something new going on with him.
It's either nonstop or it's nonstop just to him. Well, have you seen that interview where he's talking to somebody claiming to be King Cobra?
Yeah, isn't it like King Cobra but with a K, I believe?
I think so.
Yeah, I think he
It, it,
appeared at the towards the end of the video that I made. I like briefly put him in there, but I never really looked into his
mm.
story and what he was about. But I think even to this day, he's still kind of impersonating King Cobra, which is kind of funny.
Well, there's a moment in that interview that is hard to watch where, like, the actual King Cobra believes that he can conjure, like, energy.
Oh yeah, with his wands.
Yeah, or, put spells on people. And there's a moment in that interview where he's trying to conjure energy. Like, it looks like he's doing a half-assed, like, Kamehameha. You know what I
Oh my
mean?
god. Yeah,
And
there's
it,
videos where he just kind of like he would twirl his wand at a light post like at around like 6 or 7 p.m. like right as the sun is about to set, and like he'll like time it perfectly and be like, "Oh yeah, I turned on that street light."
I made the city's electrical grid function.
And then the funny thing is he sells these wands for like a crazy amount of dollars on Etsy. But he makes them in his apartment out of like sticks that he finds on the ground. He spray paints them inside of his apartment, which I'm assuming the fumes just might be accumulating and
I, oh, like, I was recently in a thrift shop and I saw a box of quote end quote wands. And, like, I'm not a big fan of, like, the Harry Potter series, but, like, something in the back of my head is like, what are the odds that at least one of those works? Like, even if it's incidental, like, what's the over under?
one of them has an enchantment on it for like +1 to magic.
Do I have to roll to use this?
I remember I had one of those wands when I was younger. It was like a plastic one that lit up if you pressed the button. I just remember going around annoying the fuck out of people and just shooting the wand towards them and trying to cast spells on them. It was the most funniest thing. I brought it to school one day and my teacher got pissed off.
See, I I had something similar happen, not with a wand per se, but with lightsabers.
Oh yes, I think I've had one before, but I'd never watched Star Wars at that point, so I didn't really know what I was doing with it.
I I grew up on that, and there was I miss them dearly. They partially came back. I found one in a Salvation Army that I immediately bought. I now own a Disney brand lightsaber. Not like the not from Disneyland, but it's a Mickey Mouse themed
What
lightsaber
the fuck?
from like 2005 or 2006.
That's so weird.
Future me, we're gonna have to put a photo up. Like we know it has to go up there.
So
But
did Disney have like a license for Star Wars at that time, or because I know that was more of a recent
well,
thing with the movies, but
well, the buyout happened. I think 2009. Like, and I'm probably off by a year or two. But there was Disney like paraphernalia in Disneyland parks and whatnot, and there was a line of toys. Can you tell that I grew up with Star Wars?
Yes, I wanted to. Like, I wanted to get into it when I was younger, but I just don't think I had access to it at the time. So, the only movie I've seen so far is the new, not the newest one, but the Force Awakens, I believe, which probably isn't the best way to get into the series.
That's fine. It's not the worst one. That's the most recent one, but that's fine. You're fine. But the old lightsaber toys had like a button that you had to press, and then the blade would actually come out of the hilt. Otherwise, it wouldn't come out. Mm. And it even had like a belt like hook that you could have on your side. And so all the kids in my neighborhood, it was like a Western. You just walk outside and everybody's got lightsabers on their hips.
God, that's like a space cowboy Western.
Yeah, and we'd like look around, it's like, you want a duel? Have lightsaber fights in the street.
I remember the one that I had was like a baton where you just kind of like flick it and the long blade would just come out. But it was really poor quality. It was just like this really soft plastic.
Well, I found they did this really weird thing a couple of years ago where it's like you could build your own lightsaber, but it was just like stacking lightsabers on top of each other to build one massive one.
I heard they've been doing that at I believe the one in Florida, Disneyland, I believe it is, or Disney World. Mm-hmm. But there's some kind of twist to it where you have to pay online just to visit the place. It's like $100 or something, and that's just to get inside the shop to like enter a queue. And then after that, the lightsaber itself, I believe, is like $250 to build, which is pretty crazy.
Well, for for both you and the people at home, if you don't want to spend an inordinate amount of money going to Florida and then going to Disney World, there is a website that I've been looking at for the last couple weeks. It's called Saberforge, and you can just get like custom parts, and it's like build it from the ground up. And I've been looking into that myself.
Saberforge. I want to look this up.
Yeah. And they even have like a 3D like choose your parts, build your own, and then you can actually order those parts all together. Like everybody, like I've talked to another guy who bought one. He's like, yeah, I've got the blade and everything for it. I'm like, I don't want the blade. I could care less about the blade. I just want the handle. Like, because it's easy enough to like put on my shelf. It's not going to take up that much room.
Wow, this is crazy. They have like custom hilts and everything, like different types of.
Yeah.
Wow. It looks like a giant fluorescent light bulb as the blade. I can't tell if that's.
It's close, honestly. But if I remember, it's like a strip of LEDs, so you can actually like change the color, and I believe some have like sound cards you can change the effect for.
Oh wow, they have like all different versions of it. They have like a hero version, $300. Wow.
Mm-hmm. If I remember, the quote apprentice version is just the hilt, and that's like 120, but it's metal. You could hit somebody with that thing.
Oh, this is interesting.
Yeah, and I've been thinking about getting one, but I don't know if I could justify the purchase to myself. You know, I spent how much on a lightsaber?
I've been thinking about that too lately, but with there's this website I used to go to called Sideshow Collectibles, and back when I was really into horror, that was like my main place to go to get like these 12-inch figures of different horror characters. And oh my god, every Christmas I just asked my mom for one, and they were expensive, but I would get one per year, and it was like the happiest time of my life.
Do you remember Movie Maniacs?
I believe so.
The I believe it was Todd McFarlane's brand, but it was horror movie characters, but super detailed, like 6-7 inch characters.
I remember another place called Hot Toys. I don't know if that's the same, if they changed names or something.
Well, Hot Toys, I believe, does those really detailed, like, actual cloth outfits and all those. But the it's hard to describe. Like, it's mainly one solid piece, and it comes with a stand with like a photo of whatever movie it's from. I grew up with those, and the first one I had was Ghostface from Scream.
Oh, that's amazing.
And he came with a tiny phone that I lost almost immediately.
I'm trying to think of my first one. It was either Michael Myers or the Friday the 13th Part 2 Jason. And they were both excellent.
Baghead,
details.
yeah.
They were amazing.
Now, what are you a fan of nowadays?
I used to be like really big into slasher horrors, like just like Friday the 13th and the Halloween series. Back when I was like 5 or 6 years old, I was into that for like probably 10 years, and then I guess as of lately, my horror tastes have become more of like psychological thrillers. Like, I think my favorite movie of all time in that category would be the 2008 version of Martyrs. It's this French film. It's really messed up. It's like, I watched it when I was 23, and that was the only movie I've seen in my adult life that I had to close my eyes because it was just too much to handle at that time.
Have you ever seen, I believe it's a Spanish film called Baby's Room?
No, but I've heard of it. Is that any good?
I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's slow build up, but as stuff starts to kind of stack, it becomes more and more dire. It's a very interesting film.
I'm gonna look that up. I want to save that for a watch later.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen the cover before. This does look really familiar.
What was the other one? I saw one years and years ago. May.
I don't think I've seen that one either.
May is dark, but it's good. It's dark. I like parts of it, but other parts, oh my goodness.
I'm trying to think of another one I've watched recently. Oh, I rewatched Creep 1 and 2, and
I love those movies.
They were so good. Like, the second one especially is my favorite. I saw them a couple years ago when they first came out, but rewatching it, I was still surprised by everything. I kind of forgot a lot of the details. It's definitely one of my favorite found footage movies out there.
So you know when Mark Duplass's character is trying to get comfortable in Creep 2, get comfortable with the documentarian character, and he strips down to nothing?
Oh yes.
So I'm not the best at like if I immediately recognize something, I'm not gonna be like, hey, that's this from that. It's like, and then like whatever thing I know about it.
Oh, I remember that you mentioning this. You said somebody was watching a movie with him in it. I think it was your brother or something. You walked in and then you're like, I've seen that guy's dick before.
Yeah, I've seen his dick. If I remember, it was The League on FX.
Such a weird way to just mention a character, be like, oh, I've seen that guy's dick before.
Well, because everything that rolled through my head, I'm like, Creep 1, Creep 2, can't remember his name. What is it? I've seen his dick. Like, that's all I could, like, throw out there. But as far as the Creep movies go, I can't believe the pacing of those movies.
I love that.
You know what I
love
mean?
the slow burn of it. Like the first one, it
Yeah.
slowly introduced you to him. Like, even you as the viewer, you didn't really know what this guy was about. And it took pretty much the whole movie before you
Mm-hmm.
found out, oh, this guy's a little bit crazy.
Mm-hmm. Well, then even when you get to Creep 2 and you understand kind of how he works, and somehow that's out the window now, too.
And that girl was intense. She just kind of fed into it and, like, just played around with him. And even at points, he seemed like he just couldn't handle her. Like, it seems like he really wanted to kill her, but he was just like, no, this girl kind of understands me.
Yeah. Well, like, even at the beginning where he's sort of in, like a malaise of, like, I guess I'll kill this guy.
Yeah, he was
Like,
having,
he's
like, a
bored
crisis.
with it.
He's like, what have I become?
Yeah. Am I really just doing the same thing, sending those tapes over and over? Although I do like the weird point that he makes at the end of the first Creep, where he's talking about, I think his name was Ben? The guy with the glasses?
Oh, Aaron?
Oh, Aaron, yeah. Where it shows him, like, his camera's pointing at Aaron, sitting on the bench. He's like, why didn't you turn around?
I know, I was watching it with my girlfriend, and then she said the same thing before that scene even happened. She was like, why doesn't he turn it around? And then it goes directly to Mark Duplass, and he says the same exact thing, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like, he pretty much said what we were thinking.
Now, if I remember, didn't Creep 2 end on, like, a very definitive note?
Yeah, so she was walking through the streets being recorded by somebody. This happened after the whole incident with them. And I believe she's sitting on a bus, and then she's looking around and then makes eye contact with the cameraman, which I'm assuming is definitely Mark Duplass. And then it just ends right there.
Duplass?
Duplass.
Does that mean the League is canon to the Creep universe? The Creep cinematic universe?
I can't wait until they make a third one, whenever that happens, because I don't know if they're going to go with a new character or bring that girl back.
Oh man, there was a pretty good kind of a horror comedy I saw years ago. I think it's actually called How to Be a Serial Killer.
I haven't heard
And
of
it's
that
a
one.
guy giving, like, it's weird. It's like this guy giving, like, sort of a inspirational, like, lecture on, like, asserting yourself through murder. and he like he's trying to teach, like, a Blockbuster employee how to kill somebody.
Oh my god.
It was like, well, he gets, like, this a-hole customer who's like, well, I returned it on time, why do I owe money and all this, and cussing the employee out, and after he leaves, the guy who was giving the lecture is like, yeah, that guy was a dick, wasn't he? He's like, why don't you go kill that guy? And the Blockbuster employee's like, what are you talking about? It's like, just go kill him. You don't know him. You're not going to get caught.
Oh god, I miss Blockbuster. I haven't heard that name in a long time.
I do too.
That's the first time that I saw Metal Gear Solid 3. Because I remember seeing it in Game Informer at the time, and then I was like, hey, I told my dad, I'm like, hey, I want to play this. So he takes me over there, and then the employee, he's like this 20-year-old guy. I'm probably like 9 or 10. He's explaining to me the game. He's like, yeah, it has such an in-depth story. There's all amazing graphics, and he's pretty much just like trying to sell the game to me. And I was just like, I was a kid. I didn't even know what was going on. I'm like, oh, guy running around in jungle shooting things. Just give me the game. He was trying to go into all the details about it, but I was just too young to understand any of it.
Do you remember Game Crazy?
Was that a store that was like a independent chain, or maybe I'm thinking of Wonderland Games? That sounds familiar. Game Crazy.
I want to say it was like a partner of Blockbuster, like, because there were certain buildings that had a Game Crazy inside of it. But it's like, if I ever had the money to open my own video game store, that's the aesthetic I want to bring back, because they had like chain link fences inside their building.
And it was like
Like that's what the shells were held on.
it was intentional, or was it just like that one
Yeah,
specific location?
it felt like several locations that I've gone to have had like it's. You ever watch like the original live action Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie?
Which one? What year did that come out?
Oh goodness me. TMNT. Not 2012, not 2007. Oh yeah, I forgot. There's like 3 different reboots. 1990 by the looks of it.
I think I might have when I was really young, because I remember seeing the Power Rangers show and then I believe TMNT.
Well, like Shredder, this horrifying crime boss, for some reason has like an underground arcade for like lost teens to hang out and smoke in. It's weird.
It's silly.
Yeah, but that's that kind of aesthetic that it brought back, which is like, why is there chain link fences everywhere? And why are they like covered in garbage bags? What's going on? And like, you walk into a Game Crazy and it's like, extreme! And you feel like a guy with a skateboard's gonna just come rolling out of the building.
That sounds amazing.
I want that back. I miss it dearly. Because if I remember that building was, or those shops were around until like 2006. Well after that that aesthetic had gone the way of the dodo.
We had a shop that was kind of like that up until like 2012. It was called Game Heads, and they just had a bunch of setups of old Street Fighter 2 on Sega Genesis on there. People would just like play each other.
Nice.
And there's like all these old games set up, and then the main guy that worked there, he looked like a mix between Wings of Redemption and Darkside Phil. And then he had this really he had this really skinny employee next to him that they just always like argue with each other, and like they'd be playing each other in Street Fighter. I think they probably both own this store, and I think they just got fed up with each other and just decided to shut down.
Oh man. There used to be one near me, that, if I remember, the building used to be like a bomb shelter.
What the fuck?
So you had to like open a massive steel door, but then it's just wall-to-wall video games.
It's like the vault from Fallout, but just full of games.
Oh. Writing that down for later.
That could be a good vault idea. Just a guy who's been there for like 30 years, addicted to video games, and he still has electricity.
One CRT and nothing but video games. Nothing but a copy of Third Strike. So do you play video games like recently?
I probably play like 2 or 3 per year. The last one I played was Ghost of Tsushima, which was amazing.
I've yet to pick that one up. I hear good things though.
Yeah, it's the only game on PlayStation 4 that I've actually platinumed so far, and I never do that because I get bored pretty easily with more recent titles. But most of the games I like are from like the 90s and 2000s. Like my favorite series is probably Quake and Half-Life, and then like a bunch of old RPGs I'm really into. Oh, I did play the Final Fantasy VII Remake. That was really good. That and
now you said the 2 Golden Boys. That means we could be friends. Quake and Half-Life.
Oh, hell yes. I was upset though because the version of Quake that I got was on Steam, and I had to download this patch to make it work, but the soundtrack wouldn't work, so I didn't get that 9 Inch Nails music to go with the game. I was just pretty much killing things in silence. But it was still fun though.
Which is no fun. I appreciate certain game companies that have tried to kind of go back and kind of recreate the retro feel.
Yeah, like I've heard that the new Doom is kind of like that. I haven't played any of them, but I heard they kind of go back to the old style of Doom in a way.
You should. You should play Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal.
I really want to.
They are both really good.
I keep hearing nothing but good things about them.
Oh my goodness, what was the there's a company that makes sort of retro, like PS1 style games.
Puppet Combo?
Holy shit.
You know about that guy.
Yes, I do.
Isn't his shit so amazing? Like the sound effects that he uses, the way he sets up the atmosphere. Oh my god, I can't believe somebody knows about Puppet Combo.
One of my favorites was Don't Go in the House.
That one was pretty good. I saw this guy named Penguin Zero. I think he made a video of him playing that back in the day.
Yeah. Oh, what are the odds that I could find somebody who knows what Puppet Combo is?
It's funny because the guy that does the music for my videos, Haunted, he made this whole soundtrack specifically for Puppet Combo, and as like a tribute to him. And then he went to send it to him, but this Puppet Combo just left him on read and like didn't really look at it. And he was so disappointed because he's been working on it for like a month. But oh well.
Oh, I know how that is.
So now he just has all these tracks that sound very similar to the style of Puppet Combo and like the sound effects that you hear in the music in his games, but now it's just sitting there in his files with no use.
So, you know what? I think it's time. I have a story for you that I don't think I've told any other guests so far.
Ooh, I'm interested.
So, when I was younger, I used to be obsessed with the Half-Life series. I still love it, don't get me wrong, but like I used to be like Half-Life all the time, beat it like 12 times in a row, that sort of thing. And so I used to play a lot of Half-Life 2 Deathmatch, and of course you meet a lot of interesting people on there. And there was one guy that just like, he was that like old school, like really laid back gamer. So when me, who was like, I think 11 at the time, I'm like, yeah, I love Half-Life. And he's like, well, did you hear they might be working on a third one? And he like sent me the one render of like the crowbar, the one quote, like the one official render of what would have been Half-Life 3. You know what I mean?
I think I saw that same picture when I was younger. Like there was one where he was outside, and then one where he was like in this tunnel sewer looking thing, and it just showed the crowbar.
Yeah, it's like a weird like silver blue crowbar instead of the red one. But I saw that and immediately like that pain started of like, when's Half-Life 3 gonna happen?
Oh, and that pain is still there.
Hey man, it's a little less now because we got Alex.
That is true. I do want to get a VR headset to try that out because it does look really nice.
It was so. I at my work I told somebody about Half-Life Alyx when it was still like not in development, but like had been announced. There's a trailer, and it's coming out, and it like I told one of my coworkers, and he looked at me like I just like I just came from the future. Like, hey man, Half-Life Alyx is coming out. He's like, what's that? Is that a fan game? I'm like, no man. Like, Valve's making a new Half-Life game. He's like, you're shitting me. No, wait, nuh-uh, no. Like, I promise you it's real. Like, you just gotta go look it up. I promise.
I think that was my same reaction to it when I first saw the release, the announcement trailer for it. Even though it was directly from Valve, I was like, this isn't real. This can't be.
Well, there was a year where they did the Half-Life 3 thing as an April Fool's joke.
I think I remember that. Like, it was...
If I remember,
What was it? What?
Didn't they list it?
Was it that, or they did something with Team Fortress 2 instead, I think. Like, they made, like, a Half-Life 3 hat or something. Something silly like that.
Oh... Well, I used to be just like over the moon about Half-Life, and I learned. So I'm in Oregon, And I learned that the Valve headquarters is up in Washington, in Seattle.
Ooh. Pay them a visit.
And, well, I was 12, and I'm like, I don't have the money, and I can't drive. I'm like, but I can do the next best thing. I'll call them and see if I can't get Gabe Newell on the phone. And oh my god, I can't believe I'm telling this story. But to their defense, so nobody picked up the phone. Nobody answered. Not one. But to their credit, Dr. Kleiner answers the phone. That's their answering machine. Which is awesome.
So is this like a little voice recording of him?
Yeah, it's like, oh, hello, we're not available at the moment. Please leave a message after the tone. And I'm just like, oh, that's so cool. And I'm like in the middle of like geeking out. And then I hear beep because the message starts. I'm like,
like, oh, Dr. Kleiner, answer me.
Like, wait, I'm like, hey, I'd like to get in contact with Gabe Newell. I have some ideas about Half-Life 3. If you could get back to me, that would be really cool. And I hung up. I didn't give a name or return phone number. But I just remember, like, the minute the beep happened, I'm just, like, sweating. Just like, ah.
I think I did something similar like that with Rockstar games. Back when I played GTA 3, I was like 6 years old probably, and I think I emailed them or something. I think I asked if I could like be an employee for them, even though I was 6.
Yeah.
And I don't think the email got anywhere, but it was like really poorly written. I just put a bunch of like different fonts everywhere and changed the colors everywhere, so the email just looked like a fucking mess. But yeah, the whole gist of it, I was just trying to like get my foot in the door at Rockstar as a 6-year-old.
Really start your career. Do you have you ever watched Freeman's Mind?
Freeman's Mind. That's not from Das Bullshit, is it? Is that from somebody else?
It's not from Das Bullshit. It's from a guy named Ross Scott. The channel is called Accursed Farms. But I recommend that series highly to both you and the wonderful party people at home. It's hilarious. I love it. But, so, I think it's the one time I've ever tried to contact somebody that I perceive as famous, and it yielded results.
Oh, you contacted the guy who made that series?
I emailed Ross Scott, and the thing is, it wasn't... So I'm kind of particular when if ever I get the chance to meet somebody that I'm a fan of, because I don't... Like, I'm not a fan of, like, seeing people like, oh my god, I'm such a big fan, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm just like, alright, just like, here's what I want out of the conversation, go, you know? Mm. And, like, even with, like, Das Bullshit, I consider him to be a celebrity in my mind, because I was a big fan of his for years. And when he, like, I kept my cool on the Discord call, through the interview, the minute we wrapped up, and I hit end record, I went, oh my god! Like, I can't believe that went so well!
Yeah, it must have been crazy, because I remember watching him too, on the bus in middle school with my friend. He'd always show me the Idiot Box series, and it was just really cool to see that interview. It was the funniest thing how you got the imposter at first.
Well, it was a guy on my Steam friends list who claimed to be Das Bullshit. I even played games with him at some point. I'm like, hell yeah, I'm online friends with Das Bullshit. Like, you know what? I should try to interview him. And then somebody in the comments went, hey, that doesn't sound like him.
Yeah, because he was dodging all the questions. That was the funniest thing. Like, you would ask him anything, he'd just be like, yeah, it was difficult to make. It took a long time. Like, he gave these really, like, just simple answers.
Well, I mean, then you compare that to the actual interview. Like,
Oh yeah.
one of the questions that always comes to mind was like, how long does it take to make an episode? And then like the imposter's like, oh, it's really long. It takes a while. It's a real long time. And then you ask the actual Despo shit, he's like, yeah, 150 hours.
Yeah, it was so satisfying to watch the actual interview after seeing the imposter one. I was just like, yes, finally, the questions are answered.
But, with most interviews, including this one, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna hang up the call and go, like, fuck you, it went so well. But with Ross Scott, before I even started my YouTube channel, I didn't know where to start, and a lot of like YouTube videos at that time didn't really give you any helpful information. Well, because I had no frame of reference. So like, well, what you'll need is a microphone and a PC, and I'm like, where do I get a microphone? Like, what the hell do I? Like, because I didn't even like have a bank account at that point. Like, where the hell do you get a microphone? And I messaged Ross Scott, or I emailed him because he had put his email in some update video that he'd made, and he got back to me. And you know what? Like, I'm pretty sure any other guy would have or any other quote end quote celebrity would have just here is a link to blank, or just kind of not respond.
Usually the latter.
Yeah, and Markiplier never responded. He never responded to me. Damn it, Mark. If you see this video, I'll find you.
If you see this video.
I like to slowly become threatening with my interview, my interview inquiry. Hey, would you like to have an interview? I will find you. I will find you.
The premise for Creep 3.
Like, no murder. Just let me interview you. Please.
You just go outside his bedroom window and just hold up a camera. You're talking to him in his sleep.
I'm shaking a microphone at him. Please.
Just answer, please.
Who are you? Who are you? I know, right? But he got back to me and he's like, yeah, you just, it's like the hardest part is starting and you gotta know what you want to make. I'm like, damn it, that's good advice.
That's cool, though. I always like when people like that respond. Like, it gives you a good feeling.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, they've taken the time out of their day. They probably get lots of messages, but the fact that they still respond, that's really nice.
Well, I mean, especially calling Valve as a kid, I'm like, I can't imagine what their voicemail looked like. When's Half-Life 3 coming out?
Yeah, I wonder what they do if those voicemails, they just sit around and laugh at them together.
The thing is, I already have in my mind what I would ask Gabe Newell if I ever got the chance to talk to him. And it's not where Half-Life 3 is. Where's Ricochet 2?
Just throw something that's so obscure at him.
When are we getting a Lost Coast remake?
Oh, I got Lost Coast. Every time I see that game in my Steam library, I'm like, I want to just start it up just to say I've played it for at least 2 seconds, but it just sits there.
Well, the thing is, Lost Coast is a tech demo.
Oh, so that's what it is.
Yeah, it's a very short and sweet. There's an actual gameplay element to it, but it's supposed to show better lighting effects and all this, and light diffraction through glass and all this for the Source engine. And I love Lost Coast because there's a video stress test that shows you what your frames per second for your current hardware is. And it's what I like to measure everything I have with. Even though, my computer is way too good for that.
Wow, this whole time I thought it was like a expansion pack where you're like lost on a coast or something.
Kind of, but not canon per se. Like, you're still Gordon, but it doesn't have any bearing on anything.
Hmm.
But so I was helping my old roommate with his computer recently, and his is like a ridiculous monster. It's got like an RTX 2070
Oh god.
and like 32 gigs of RAM and an i9 processor and all this. And we get it all set up. I help him fix it, and we get it all set up, and he's on his desktop. And he goes, "All right, what game do you want to see?" And I started laughing and went, "Put on Lost Coast." Like, I want to see what happens.
God, I wanted to see his reaction at
And
that. Like Lost Coast, what the fuck?
Well, that in it'll do the video stress test, and it'll show you your average frames per second at the end. And so we get to the end, and it says like 300 frames a second.
Oh my god.
And he's like, "Is that good?" I'm like, "No, it's terrible."
That reminds me of like what I do when I show my friends my new like gear if I ever get a new computer. When I bought this computer a couple of years ago, they're like, "Oh, let's see a game run on it." So I put up this old game from 1999, I believe. It's called SWAT 3, and it just looks terrible. Like it's an ugly game, but like I was like showing that off, and they're like, "What is this?"
There's a running joke I have between me and some of like the other people I talked to about computers. Have you ever played the game Commander Keen?
No, but I've heard of it.
It's like a 2D platformer from like 1990, like 90. And every time one of my friends builds a computer, I'm like, "Can it run Commander Keen?" Like, it's not gonna blow out the graphics card, is it? Are we sure it can run it? Well, personally, what I like to do whenever I get like a new mouse keyboard set up, or whenever I have to replace it, is I'll do the hazard course from the first Half-Life.
Ooh. Yeah, just to get a feel for it, because I feel like that's like something like you're familiar with.
Well, that, and I feel like it's the perfect way to kind of like get your mouse sensitivity just right and get used to your keyboard.
I do that same thing with the first Portal. Like if I get anything new, I'll always go to the first Portal game and then do a run through on that, see how everything feels.
I went back and played that recently. Is it me, or is Portal 1 like a lot scarier than I remember?
It really is. The soundtrack in that game, there's this one song, it's called like a Self-Esteem Fund, and it plays like halfway into the game. You're just kind of going through a corridor, and this weird ambient track pops up, and I remember the first time I heard that, it was kind of quiet in the background because my music volume was low, but it was just the creepiest sounding thing, and I think I was like 12 or 13 when I first played this, and I just got home from school. I had a fever for some reason, but I still went. It was just like a weird fever dream when I was playing it.
But your parents still sent you? Like, even, like, the first level of Portal is such a weird, like, really well done horror, because you are entirely alone, but you can, like, look over and you see those windows with, like, the office chairs and everything, and you're kind of expecting there to be a person.
I remember sitting there just waiting for somebody to walk by, like, just a random scientist or something, and yeah, that was because the second game, it established more of a story. You had, like, that, what's his name? Nolan North's character. He would talk to you.
Ratman?
Oh, yeah, that guy as well. He had those Easter eggs in the first one. You'd find, like, little secret rooms and stuff.
Mm.
And, like, yeah, the whole first game, just from beginning to end, is this complete isolation, it feels like. I think that's why I like the first one a lot more, because it's just the atmosphere that it gave off.
Well, what was Well, they changed the. Did you see that they changed the ending to Portal 1 when Portal 2 got announced?
Oh, I didn't see that. What was that ending supposed to be?
So the original ending is you get shot up and outside Aperture and you land in the parking
Oh yeah,
lot.
and then you're just kind of like laying there as everything's
Yeah,
blown
and it
up
just
after you
yeah,
kill
and it
GLaDOS.
yeah, and it just fades to black. But then they changed it so when you're laying there and it's you hear a robot roll up to you and it's like, "Thank you for like doing the party submission position because you were asked to like lay flat on your stomach after you beat all the tests." And then the robot drags you back into Aperture. Like, it just ends with you getting dragged across the ground back into the building.
That's that makes things even scarier. It's like, oh, you finally escaped
Yeah.
and then just dragged back into hell again.
It's even weirder that there's an automated system just in case that happens.
Even after ultimate destruction, you're just pulled back into it all.
And then, I guess Wheatley just tooled around forever and found you.
God, I love that game so much.
Uh,
It's only like an hour long if you like know what you're doing, but I could just play it over and
yeah,
over.
you can blaze through it. Well, oh man. Was it Portal 2 had a Easter egg with slow wave radio transmissions? Where, well, for the party people at home, slow wave radio transmission is a set of tones and sound waves that, when put through a transmitter, can produce an image. So you'll hear like a nonsense jumble of beeps, screeches, and sounds, but then it'll sort of create lines of an image, and then it'll form one big cohesive picture. And if I remember, if you took the radio into one of the Ratman rooms, it starts playing that transmission, and you can see the companion cube on the moon.
Whoa, I don't think I've ever seen that before.
Yeah.
I remember with the first game, I would take the radios that you'd find throughout the game, and like you take them to the part right before you get into the elevator to the next chamber. And oh no, it was when you take the turrets through the little. It's like a little energy thing that's right before the elevator, and they make this really strange noise when they go through it, like they disintegrate.
The Emancipation Grill.
I think something happens with the radios too, but it's been so long since I've played it, so I forgot if they made a certain noise or something.
I'm a sponge for like I'm not sure what kind of information you'd call it because it's useful and incredibly like now it's useful, but it's normally not useful information.
I'm the same way. I just like have all these random things built up in my mind that I've discovered throughout my whole life, like just random things in games and movies that I would see. I would be like, oh, did you know if you go under the staircase in this game, you'll find a secret Easter egg? And like, but the game's like, it probably has like 6 people have played it in their life, and like the whole existence of the game. So everybody's like, what are you talking about? What is this game? What's this staircase you're talking about?
Or the most horrifying question is, I've never heard of that game before. What is it? Oh.
I know, that's the worst thing, and then it's like fuck, I can't share my information.
You know, Cave Johnson in Portal 2. Wait, there's a second Portal game? Oh no.
The crazy thing with Portal and like even Quake and all those games I've mentioned, I've only played them like for the first time very recently, like 2016 probably. Like during that year, I don't know why, but I played Half-Life 2 when I was like in 6th or 7th grade back in like 2007. But like Quake, Final Fantasy 7, at the first Half-Life and the Opposing Force and Blue Shift, all of that I was doing in 2016, and like I still I felt like I was like in the 90s, like I was playing it and I was like, wow, this is really good stuff. Like I still appreciated it for its, even though I was like playing it 20 years later.
Yeah. And it's weird seeing like other people as video games progress, because a lot of times people will choose games simply because it looks pretty. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's unfortunate.
oh, this newest Call of Duty, the graphics are amazing, like, but the story sucks.
God, I feel like the thing that I go for in gaming is this atmosphere mostly. Like, I feel like a big inspiration for my style of like video creation probably came from like Silent Hill 4, like just that weird gloomy atmosphere that it has. This I kind of take like the sound effects and the music from that, and I just kind of incorporate it into like my creative process pretty much. I just love that kind of thing about gaming. Like whenever there's like little things, little sounds, little details, anything like that, that just kind of bring it alive.
What was the one? Well, there's some where it takes like minor details and expands it into something ridiculous, like how was it Killer Instinct? Have you played the newer Killer Instinct?
I don't think so. Let me check that.
I want to say 2014, but I might be wrong.
Killer Instinct.
By Double Helix.
Oh no, I don't think. Is this a fighting game?
Yeah. If I remember, there's a thing you can do called oh jeez, it's like a sort of like a training mode you can go into, but it takes how you play, like sort of your inputs from previous fights, and then puts that into another character to then fight you.
That's really cool.
So you just kind of end up fighting yourself.
I'm surprised more fighting games don't do that. Like as of late,
I want to see a Dark Souls game do that.
That would be interesting.
Take your fighting style, and then that's the final boss.
Oh man, the final boss for me would just be like constant rolling, just rolling all over the fucking platform.
Why won't he stop blocking?
I think I'd be very annoyed by fighting my Dark Souls character.
How many of the Dark Souls games have you played?
All three of them, and Bloodborne. The only one I didn't play was Demon Souls. I played Sekiro like halfway, then I got stuck at one boss and I just couldn't get through it. But Dark Souls 1 I beat, and it was my favorite one for sure. I love the level design. I love how there's that main hub, the Firelink Shrine, and everything kind of connects to it. And it doesn't tell you where to go. You just kind of have to figure out like what areas are going to be like deadly for you, and I love that.
Yeah.
There's no hand holding, so that's my favorite thing about the first one.
See, I miss that about a lot of older games, like even Half-Life. To circle back, you're told to go kind of through context. It's characters talking either at you or to each other, but there's no like new objective, get to Nova Prospect. It's like, well, if we're gonna get there, we gotta go through Nova Prospect, and they're like, all right, guess that's where we're going.
Yeah, I love that. I love how there was nothing just leading you through things. Like there was this one point in Half-Life 1 where there's a door that slides open, but it has glass panels on it. And for the longest time, I didn't know that you like crouch down and like break one of the glass panels at the bottom to like crawl through it. I was stuck for the longest time. I'm like, how the hell do I get past this part?
What was the What was it? Half-Life 2, when Alex is like, oh, that's the old road to Ravenholm. We don't go there anymore. I'm like, I'm gonna end up going there at some point.
That was a good part. Oh my god, it became like a horror game at that point.
So there was, so I have somewhere around here, now that I need it, I can't find it, but, I have one of those headsets that you put your phone in to use as like a makeshift VR headset.
I've seen that before with Google. They have like a thing called Google Cardboard.
Yeah.
I've always wanted that, just to see like VR, just kind of like lay in my bed, fucking piece of cardboard on my head.
It's, you know what? Works okay. If you attach your headphones to it, works just fine. But there's a channel out there that makes VR renders of like classic video game areas, and like they had one that was the Half-Life games, and so you're hanging out in like the main courtyard of like City 17 from the beginning, and you're like standing in Eli's lab and all this, and it's great because there's like sound effects going on around you and all this.
Oh, that must be amazing to experience.
but then so I I played Half-Life 2 fairly young, and so like Ravenholm is like a special kind of hell for me. And so like the way he transitioned is like it fades to black for a second, then fades back into wherever new location, and the sound effects change. But it fades out of like the piece. It's like the shore of Highway 17 where you're looking out over the ocean. Like, you know what? This is peaceful. I could just live here for a minute. And then it fades out and comes back, and I'm standing in the middle of Ravenholm. And the person added sound effects that aren't in that game. But you can hear like footsteps on wood, and you can hear like a lady crying in the distance.
That sounds so beautiful.
Ha ha ha! Beautiful, yeah, sure.
I need to
But
get
like
Google Cardboard now just to experience this.
Like I'm like sitting on my bed, and my ex, who I was with at the time, was sitting on her computer, and I'm sitting on the bed, and they just go, nope, no, 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 and I'm like grabbing at the straps on my head, like I gotta go, I gotta get out of here. It's oh god, that scared me silly.
I want to see that with like a game like Fear or something. That'd be really amazing. Because I remember there were so many moments in Fear that just the like the buildings around you and everything was just creepy to be around.
Yeah.
That's like probably the only type of horror that I've seen where like they involve a child to like be scary and it actually works. Because usually whenever there's a horror like game or movie that it's like, oh, there's a scary demonic child, I'm like whatever, get this out of my face. It's boring. But Fear did it so well. Like Alma was actually pretty creepy.
Well, yeah, and even then, like, Alma barely does anything directly to the character. It's more like the influence she has on the people around her. Do you ever play Fear 2?
Yes.
Oh, there was a really good moment. I can't remember the guy's name. It was like Daniels or some, like one of your other soldier buddies. But you're in the middle of a huge firefight, and he's like tripping out because Alma's messing with him, and he's walking through the middle of the firefight like pawing at the air, and he's not getting hit the entire time.
I think I remember that part. Yeah, that was really good.
And what I like is that they don't call attention to it. They're not like, what's he doing out there? It's just you kind of see him just like stumbling out there. And
yeah, it's like almost like a background thing going on.
Yeah. I wish more games had moments like that.
I know there's really not that many that do like the background kind of thing where it doesn't really put focus on it. I'm trying to think of more that I've played in recent times that have. There's this one game. It's called it's a Korean game called White Day, and it came out back in like 2001 or something, and I think they kind of did that pretty well. Like
White Day.
It's basically this game that you're like it was set in a school, and then there's like this weird ghost janitor that like walks around jiggling his keys, and like you could hear him from like pretty far away, but it's just like little background sounds that you don't really think about, but it kind of just like hints at something bad is about to happen.
White Day, okay. Yeah, I can see here.
That game also has
looks like it might have gotten remade.
Ooh. I wonder if it's actually good, the remake.
Here's hoping.
That was another game that just had a terrifying soundtrack. Just the creepiest sounding thing. Yeah, I love the... Like, for Silent Hill, some of the Resident Evils and games like White Day, they just have these soundtracks that are done so well. Like, even Metal Gear Solid 3, in a way, there's parts of that game that almost seem like a horror. And like, specifically the part where you're in that prison and you turn off your game console and come back in, and you're like in this dream where you're like a vampire slayer, and there's like these hordes of monsters coming at you.
Guy Savage, yep.
That was... I remember the first time that happened to me, because I was at that part when I was a kid and I couldn't understand how to get past it. So I turned off my game. I was really frustrated. I ate some ice cream. I came back to it and then I turned it on. I'm like, what is this game? Like, I thought I was playing Devil May Cry or something. I don't remember taking Metal Gear Solid out of the tray.
Isn't it just a nightmare that Naked Snake's having?
Yeah, so I think it's like it's so the character kind of looks like paramedic, like they have a similar face structure, and then I remember if you call her afterwards, Snake says something like, "Oh, your pillow talk has given me nightmares" or something like that, and your mention of horror movies, because I remember she was always talking about movies whenever you'd call her on the codec.
What was the name? Sigint?
Oh yeah, the that one black guy on there who was like the technician or something.
Yeah, I love how he's the one normal guy in that entire game.
Yeah, pretty much. And then, isn't he the DARPA chief in the first one who has the heart attack?
Yep, Donald Anderson.
It's so weird how it all connects.
I think it's stranger that I even remembered that. Because I haven't played Metal Gear Solid 1 for like 5-6 years.
Yeah, the last time I played that was probably back in like a couple years after I played MGS3 for the first time. Because I was really getting into the series after that. And I managed to find a copy of it. And I was like, oh, hell yes.
Well, I think my dad had a copy of MGS3, and I was like way too young to understand it. Like, I'm just in the woods, I don't know what to do. This game sucks. Same with Devil May Cry.
Oh my god, Devil May Cry 3. I played around the same time as Metal Gear Solid, and those were my favorite games at the time, but I just didn't understand what was going on. I was like, what are demons? What are these things?
Well, for me, it was like, why does this guy with white hair have a sword? This is dumb. I don't like it.
Why does this gun have infinite ammo? Why does he keep shooting?
Yeah. And then, going back, I'm like, I fucking love Devil May Cry. I love it so much. I just got done beating 5. I've beaten all of them.
What'd you think of it?
I really liked 5.
Yeah, it was amazing.
What'd you think?
Because I remember 4 came out back in 2007, I believe, and then I really loved 4, but it had an issue where when you played as Dante halfway through, he kind of just was a backtracking character going through Nero's levels. But for the longest time, I was waiting for 5 to come out because they kind of hinted at a 5th one towards the end of 4. But then DMC came out, and I played it, and I was like, this is the worst thing ever. That Ninja Theory one.
So, let me ask you, how bad does a reboot have to be for the original creator to then come back and go, yeah, that game didn't happen, here's a sequel to the original timeline?
Oh, wow, he actually admitted to it, that it was terrible?
Well, like, if I remember, he barely had anything to do with the remake, and then everybody was like, New Dante sucks, and then he's like, alright, DMC5.
It took the longest time, too, like 10 years just for the 5th one to come out, but it was so worth the wait. I was happy to see it actually continue on from the 4th one.
If I remember, my first exposure to Devil May Cry was the worst one in the series, number 2.
The second one. That game.
See, that's annoying. That is a sound that you know what I'm talking about.
It was interesting. It had some cool soundtracks. It had really cool art, like the style of the game, that gothic architecture going on. But
yeah,
it had its issues. Like first of all, the pistols were so powerful. You could stand in the corner of the entire game and shoot everything. Your sword was pretty much useless for the most part. But then the weird part is when you started fighting like demon tanks and demon helicopters. It just got too bizarre.
Well, so the final boss where it's every boss you've faced up to that point, but it's one massive blob sitting in the middle of a giant circular room.
Oh yeah, that was the second to last boss, because I remember you fight him and then you go to I think you go into hell, and there's like this phoenix, like flaming fire dude that you fight. And then,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's when Dante's trapped in hell. Yeah, I remember that blob though.
But it's just, oh, like that boss fight was the worst. That was so bad that I was able to beat it while barely even looking.
It was the same for me because like you had to keep going around it, but like you could just shoot it the whole time.
Well, so it's weird because like their view, the way each like head pointing out of that blob sees is kind of like a cone shape, but if you eliminate one of those heads, you have a giant blind spot that you can just stand there, and like it doesn't, the blob doesn't move. You have to walk around it, and so you can just target the other heads out of range of them.
That game was so broken.
So
I loved it.
yeah, and I'm just standing there with like the dual SMGs, and I'm just holding down square and shooting forever. And I'm like checking my phone while like there's just gunfire, and I'm like, I'm winning still somehow. I'm winning.
That game didn't feel real. Like the whole time I played it, I just felt like I was about to die, like from an illness. I just felt like I was.
The game's gonna kill you.
It just seemed like a prank was being played on me.
This can't be real.
Because I went from Devil May Cry 3 directly to that. Because I didn't play the first one at that point, and I was just like, how did this happen?
So I bought the full series on Steam. I think middle of last year, and I sat down and just went through all of them, and whew. So fun fact, the first DMC was supposed to be a Resident Evil game, or was originally pegged to be.
Yeah, I remember that. Like it was supposed to have the similar camera style too. They even made like I think they had like a beta trailer that released some long time ago, and you could kind of see like the Resident Evil influence it has on it. Like the music kind of sounds similar. I think Dante wasn't supposed to be as powerful as he was. It was just kind of like a spin-off.
You go and look at the like I have the DMC HD collection, and it has the promotional art for all three games on there. And if you go and look at the concept art for Dante and some of the locations, it shows Dante with like a submachine gun and what looks to be like Leon's jacket from RE4.
I think I never saw that photo before, but that'd be so interesting to look at.
I'll have to find it, because like you just see him like running up a staircase, and it's like that's clearly Leon's jacket.
I love games like that where they were meant to be something and then turn into something completely different. Like I remember this game actually came out. It was before Battlefield even was a thing. It came out in 1998, I believe. It was called Codename Eagle, and it was made by, I believe it was made by DICE, or at the time they were called Talonsoft. But it was pretty much like what Battlefield was supposed to be. It was like Codename Eagle was going to be its own thing, but then somehow it evolved into Battlefield, which was interesting.
Sort of a proof of concept.
Yeah, and it was really good too. It was like the setting of the game was like World War One, but in like an alternate dimension where Russia takes over the world or something like that. And you play as a British pilot named Red, which I'm assuming is based off of the Red Baron, I mean. And it was a really fun game. I liked it a lot, but I would have preferred if they just kept going with that series instead of churning into Battlefield. It was unique. I liked it.
I love old first person shooters before they got like the mouse aiming nailed down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I tried to play Arma Cold War Assault.
I've only played
that game.
I played the second Armor, I believe, but it was really hard to learn the controls because it seems like every button did something different.
Yeah, that first Armor, it's like I sat there for like 5 minutes trying to figure out how to move.
think that I had that same experience. Like I got into a vehicle and I just didn't know how to drive it.
I tried playing Arma 3, but just like that survival mode.
Mm.
And I'm like, this is going pretty good. And I kind of forgot that there are other people on like that giant island with you.
Mm-hmm.
And for those listening at home, this is kind of before that whole battle royale, like the circle getting smaller thing took off. So you just had a big island to run around on forever. And I'm driving like a truck down a country road. I'm like, this is really nice. I'm like, I can see why people play this game. And then like my windshield gets blown out. I'm like, oh shit! And it was, like I didn't even hear the shot. And my windshield just explodes. I'm like, oh shit! I'm swerving all the road, and I'm suddenly taking damage because I'm getting shot. I'm like, oh god, no.
Yeah, I remember that. Every time I got shot in that game, like there was like a delay with the sound. I don't know if that was intentional or if it was some kind of glitch, but I just remember like driving and then all of a sudden something would break, and I'd be like, what the fuck was that?
Or your tire goes out from under you. You ever play Grand Theft Auto 5 online?
I played it on PlayStation 3 when it first came out, and then I think the PlayStation 4 version came out like a year later, and I didn't buy it at the time, so I kind of I only got like probably a couple months or maybe like a year of gameplay out of that.
It's like playing a game about the apocalypse in the middle of the apocalypse happening. Because it's just people just taking each other out left and right.
I think that's what I was doing when I was playing it for a brief moment. I just kept crashing into people's cars and destroying it, even though they could get it back with the insurance thing. But it was just fun to do, just kind of griefing people.
Well, my favorite bit of griefing that I haven't done, but I love seeing it, is when somebody just drives up and into a clothing store because it closes that clothing store. Or you see a shot ring out and like the clerk's just dead and you can't buy clothes. I had a moment where it was something out of a horror movie where like I'm in the back, you know how if you go in the back you can change your clothes like in the dressing room? Yeah. I was back there and like putting on a hockey mask because of course.
Oh hell yeah.
But an explosion rings out and like the clerk's dead and it's like this store's closed, come back later. I'm like, what the hell happened? And I lean out and there's a tank parked outside and the barrel is pointing through the doors into the building. And they haven't seen me yet. And I'm like up against the wall and like waiting. I'm like, please don't see me. Please don't fire around.
Trying on all the clothing. You're like, please let's let me try on the shirt.
Yeah, I'm just sitting there just like, please don't come back here. And I, like, thankfully they, like, backed up and pulled away, and I just, like, I did that, like, slight crouch you can do, and I just, like, quickly ran out of the building and got my car and took off. Oh, jeez.
Yeah, sometimes griefing on games is the most fun I could get out of them. Like, there's this game called Human Fall Flat that me and my friend got into like 2 months ago, and the whole game is
I love that.
the whole time like we would just walk up to people and be like, we go on the little chat thing and be like, hey, this person talk shit about my mom, let's throw him in the garbage. So like everybody in the server would just kind of like pile onto this one guy and like start grabbing him, and we
try to throw him off the edge,
drag him to the garbage can, and then like throw him in there, close the lid, and then like push him off the edge. And they'd get so mad, they'd be like, stop, please, don't grab me anymore.
A buddy of mine, years ago used to recite the lyrics to Barbie Girl by Aqua, but do it like monotone, just no singing. But it was while we were playing Team Fortress 2. And so we'd be like standing on the capture point just like, I'm a Barbie girl. In a Barbie world, wrapped in plastic, it's fantastic.
That would be creepy to experience.
And then my buddy would be like, "Come on, Barbie, let's go party."
A duet forms of monotone men.
Well, did you ever play those, like, the Source community servers?
I've played Source games before. I'm trying to think.
So, like, like Counter-Strike Source,
yes.
but you're not doing like the official game. You're like goofing around playing soccer or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, do you remember Roll the Dice?
Was that in Counter-Strike Source?
It was in, I think, every community-made, like, Source server. Like, so Half-Life 2 Deathmatch, your Counter-Strikes, all that. But you, like, you would type !RTD, roll the dice, and it would give you a random effect. Or in my case, it would just kill you sometimes.
Yeah, I remember that now. Yeah, there was, like, certain commands you could put in, depending on the server.
Yeah.
Like, I used to play a lot of zombie games on Counter-Strike Source, and you'd type in, like, !zombie, and then you could have, like, a whole list of different zombies you could play as. Of each has different stats, pros and cons.
Yeah. And what I like to do is, like, you can tell that some people have been around since those are very popular, and I'll go into, like, official servers for, like, Team Fortress 2 and, like, Counter-Strike Global Offensive and all this, and I'll type !RTD, and then for some reason everybody gets really mad at me because I did that. They're like, "This is an official server, dumbass." Then I'll just put roll the dice, and then I'll wait a minute until somebody, like, like, replies, and then I just put, like, you know, Fresman rolled shit pants, or something like that. Or I have, you know how if you go into the console and type kill, you'll just die? Yeah. So, for every Source game, I have that binded to a key.
The suicide button.
And so sometimes I'll wait until, like, my own teammate shoots me, and then I'll hit kill and just collapse. And I did that once during was one of the, like, CSGO games, and I just went into the chat, like, "What did you do? What did you do? Why? Why did you shoot me?" They're like, "But friendly fire's off." I'm like, "But I'm dead, so how do you explain that?"
God, I had so much fun on Counter-Strike Source. That was probably my most played online game. I put, like, a couple 100 hours into that back when I was young. That was, like, my first Steam game I actually got when I got it in, like, 2008. I had so much fun with Source.
I missed it, man. I want to go back and play Source. I want to play Day of Defeat again.
I wanted to get into that back when I got this, like, this thing on sale back in the day where Day of Defeat came with it. It was like a package of games, but I never actually played it at this point. But Source, I just remember there was so many things you could do. Like, they had mini games, they had prison break servers, zombies.
Yeah,
that stuff was so fun. And, like, I remember the prison servers were the best because you just have somebody like the warden or the guards commanding you as a prisoner, and you could just mess with them. It was such a fun time.
There was a video I made ages ago with CJD2D, and we were doing the jail thing, the Counter-Strike Source jail servers, and, like, normally I can recall stupid stuff from 20 years ago, but then, like, for some reason that one pressure, like, they brought all the prisoners out, they're like, "Sing a song from a sitcom," and all of my knowledge just kind of flew away.
Yeah, it's like
looking,
like the heat of the moment. You're like, "Oh fuck, I've watched sitcoms forever, but I don't know them now."
Well, like, I'm ready to, crouch, jump over whatever, shoot gun at something rather, and then they're like, sing a show tune or something. I'm like, oh no, And only after recording was over, I'm like, I could have sung the Friends theme or something. Or something. And,
It was so funny when they had like trivia. They line up all the prisoners, and I'd be in the line crouched, and then they'd say something like this question I had no answer to, and they'd go to me and ask me to answer it pretty much, and I'd be like, oh fuck. So I would always just get up from crouch and start running, just trying to desperately escape. It's the funniest thing.
You know, if ever I go into one of those servers again, and they ask me to bring up some, like, useless piece of information, I can school that all day. I'll just, hey, I've seen I've seen Mark Duplass's dick. I know what that looks like. Then I think they'll leave me alone.
They just ask you, like, how many hairs are on Mark Duplass's genitals? And you're like, I've seen
How many
it.
pubes does he have? I didn't have time to count, but you know what? It was a fair amount. No, sir, I don't like it. Oh, what a tangled web this conversation has become.
I love it. It's so good.
Video games, nostalgia about video games, source ports, Mark Duplass's dick. That's the parabolic trajectory of this.
This whole conversation is an anomaly.
We're still on the incline. I'm gonna check your channel tomorrow, and there's a video about me, and you're like, "What the hell was that all about?" Wouldn't stop talking about Mark Duplass. I don't know what that was about.
It's like an hour-long documentary. It's like Fresman Anomaly Analysis. It has your mask on the thumbnail.
Nice. But So, what is your all-time favorite video game? If you had to pick one from any era.
Oh my god, I'm probably gonna say some weird shit that nobody's even heard of. Let me think.
Call of Duty World at War.
Black Ops. Let me see.
Ghosts.
On my Steam profile, my favorite game is listed as a. So there's this game by Monolith Studios, the guys who made Fear. It came out in 1997. It's called Shogo Mobile Armor Division. It's like this really fast-paced.
Yeah.
You know this game? Oh
Yeah.
my god, I can't believe it. You're getting all these things. Holy shit. That was probably my favorite of all time because it was so fast-paced, and I love the. It was like an anime, like a dubbed anime. That's what it reminded me of, the entire game. Like, it's like if you gave...
I didn't know it was on Steam.
Yeah, it's for like $2. And, like, I have the CD, like, still from, like, when I was a kid. Because I bought it back in, like, 2000. But I was like, you know what? I just want to have the Steam version because I want to support it.
Is it $2 right now?
I think so. The last time that I checked, like, 3 years ago, I think it was, like, $2 or $3.
It is $10.
What the fuck? Damn. Demand went up.
Yeah. Publisher Interplay. Oh my god. And consider this game purchased.
But besides that, I think my favorite game is either like Metal Gear Solid 3, Devil May Cry 3, or shit, what's another one that I'm really into? When I was a kid, I used to play World of Warcraft a lot. I put a lot of hours into it, but I don't think I would say it's my favorite. But I had a lot of memories with it.
That's fair. I had a weird, preconceived notion about World of Warcraft. And it wasn't like, oh, it's the nerd game, because I'm a nerd. Like, there's no saving me from that. But, I always saw it as kind of like a time sink, you know? And I tried it, I installed it, and then I like went off the beaten path and ended up at some like alternate dimension carnival that happens once a
Oh
year
yeah,
or
the
something
Dark
like
Moon
that.
Fair. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was standing there, and I for a very real second I was like, I can't even remember how I got here.
Yeah, because
Like,
like
this might not be for me.
yeah, there's a lot. I had a lot of good memories on that game, like with me and my real life friends. But I think I remember my favorite game now. It's probably, this is a weird one, but Hitman Contracts. I thought was like perfect in every way, like from the sound design, the atmosphere, just the feeling of it was such a cool game. Definitely my favorite of the Hitman series.
That's a good answer.
Because I remember there's this one level
Like,
where like there's a hotel, and if you look inside of one of the mirrors, there's like a section of the hotel that's blocked off because there's a crime scene. And if you look into the mirror, there's like
yeah, the ghost?
Yeah, and there's this little secret that if you time it correctly, you could run through the hallway really fast, and the ghost will appear. But if you have your fiber wire out, you could get behind the ghost and start choking it and kill it, and you could drag you could drag the dead ghost around the hotel. It's so silly.
I like the idea of your handler, like, what are you doing? Choking the air.
It's funny because like the whole part of that hotel is like a dark blue color, and like I just imagine like a security guard or something walking in, and you see this bald guy in a suit just choking out this torso and head of a ghost. And the ghost has no legs, and it's just like appearing and disappearing out of reality as it's being choked out. The sight of that just must be like the weirdest thing.
Oh god, that reminds me of you ever watch Batman the animated series?
Oh yes, when I was younger, I love that show.
So there was a clip that recently resurfaced on YouTube, and it was, if I remember, the video is called like the world's smartest henchman or something like that. And they're like, and you hear a guy like, I'm gonna go check this room, and he opens the door and leans in, and Batman's standing there, and like he doesn't, like neither of them say a word, but then the henchman just leans back and shuts the door. And then another henchman's like, did you see anything? He goes, no, I didn't see anything.
It sounds like the AI of Hitman. Like when guards kind of see you, but they don't. Like when you're like obviously in their field of vision, they're like, what is that? And then they like turn around, completely disregard you.
Oh, that bothers me for most stealth games where it's like they will see you walk from one side of the room to the other, then they're like, must have been my imagination.
That's it was the worst in Oblivion. Like they'd be like, oh, it was just the rat. Oh, I must be drinking again.
Well, was it there was a more recent game that kind of did that where I want to say it was Last of Us Part 2, where like I choked somebody out and then they like saw me in the middle of strangling somebody. And they're like, oh, there's nothing over here. Like, but
This happened a couple of times in Ghost of Tsushima. Like whenever I do any stealth kills, it's like I'm obviously right out in the open, but like the Mongolians nearby just kind of are like, they're alerted, but then they just kind of like walk away. I hate that. It pulls me out of it, but like sometimes it could get it pretty funny.
I do like the idea that most henchmen are just not paid enough to care. Did you see something? Did you pay me to see something?
Oh my god, the AI in these games is so good. But speaking of Batman, what do you think of the new one that's coming out with Robert Pattinson?
I am excited for it. I'm cautiously optimistic, but with most things, I'm never like, ooh, it's gonna be amazing. It's like, all right, looks promising. Please don't mess it up, please.
Yeah, pretty much the same way I feel, and like I have high hopes for it, kind of just because Robert Pattinson lately and his roles in movies he's been really good. Like I saw The Lighthouse last year, and I think it's my favorite movie of all time.
Yeah.
He surprised me. That was the first movie I've seen of him probably since like Harry Potter. back when he was in the fourth one, I
he
believe.
messed up that bird.
Oh my god, that was my favorite. That was one of my favorite parts. He was lost at that point, and it looked so real.
I always have like respect for actors who can like do uncomfortable roles, but uncomfortable for a lot of like different actors can be like playing an overly angry character when usually you're kind of the nice guy, you know what I mean?
Mm.
But so like seeing a sort of calm Robert Pattinson throughout most of that movie, I'm like, okay, he's kind of like it seems like this movie's playing it safe, and then he annihilates that bird against a rock. I'm like, Jesus Christ, whoa! I'm like, all right, you got me there. That's a good one.
Yeah, the way his character changes, like towards the end, it just throws me off completely. Like he starts jacking off in front of the camera and screaming. He's drinking kerosene. It just gets so wild.
Hallucinating, getting with a mermaid.
He's on the verge of like making out with Willem Dafoe, but then they get into a fist fight.
Drinking turpentine and honey.
Oh my god, that movie! The ending was so good. Like I saw it in theaters, and just the sound of the ending when he's screaming when he opens up the lighthouse at the end, and God, the sound effects. Like I would just go on YouTube sometimes and go to the ending and just put my headphones on, put the volume on the loudest, and just sit there and just repeat it like 5 or 6 times. I'm like, it's just so satisfying to me.
Well, what was it? It had it's on Prime Video, Amazon Prime Video, and I found it on accident on there because I was just looking for something to watch. It's like, oh, Lighthouse. I'm like, this will be fun. Then an hour and a half later, and I'm just sitting there with like, oh my god. Ooh.
I get so excited to show that movie to people because everybody just has this reaction that I'm like that they just don't expect.
Well, because that movie is a lot of things. Like, it's uncomfortable and strange, but then there are parts where it's really funny.
Yeah, there's some really silly parts. Like a black comedy almost.
Well, there's that moment. It's like, "Oh, I hate your lobster." He's like, "You don't mean that."
And then that long ass speech that he screams at him and curses him. It's
Hark,
Hark, Triton.
Your gut's full of sea foam. Just like, whoa, Jesus. And like you even see the look on Robert Pattinson's face, just like, whoa.
God, I'm gonna have my friend over in like 2 or 3 weeks. It's gonna be his first time seeing this movie, and he wants to watch it with me after smoking some marijuana, which I don't do often, but this is a special occasion, and I'm curious to see how I'm going to feel about the movie, viewing it in a different state of mind. I also want to see his reaction.
I partake in the casual jazz cigarette, but I've got an oil pen.
Oh yeah, me too.
It's a little bit easier for me.
I got a ooze pen, they call it.
I have an active resin pen, so it's strong. It'll mess you up, but it's easier for me. It's less harsh.
Yeah, it's also there's no smell to it, so much easier to do indoors.
Yeah.
The only reason why I don't smoke as often anymore is because like 2 months ago,
yeah,
I got randomly drug tested at work, and prior to that, I smoked probably like 2 weeks before that point. So I'm like, okay, I'm fucked. I'm gonna be positive, but
sure.
I don't. Even at that point, I really didn't do it often. I'd probably do it like once every 2 weeks. So like, I think I was such a casual smoker that it just got out of my system quickly. But I was so terrified during that, like I had to use the bathroom for like the urine test, but like I didn't want to. I was like hesitant. I was trying to find ways to like get out of it. Like whenever the nurse would, or not the nurse, but whoever gave me the test would like walk out of the room. I just try to find ways to like pass out or like just get out of the situation any way I can. So like I'd get up really fast and like breathe heavily and then sit down, get back up, I was just trying to like, I was just trying to like get myself in this situation where I was like, I needed some medical attention just to avoid it.
Yeah.
But no, it came back negative, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to be very careful from this point on.
My old job used to do cheek swab testing, which I used to live with a bunch of roommates who were all stoners. Like, they smoke day in, day out. They have weed for breakfast, that sort of thing.
Oh god.
And like, I'm not a big smoker. Like, I'm not a big weedman.
Mm.
Like, I usually, like, I'll pick one night and then I'll just kind of plan my evening around it. Like, usually it's like, alright, got a bunch of snacks, oil pen, and I'm just gonna listen to music.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I used to do it. And it's the same thing, like, I play music with a band, and then our drummer smokes a lot, so whenever I'm in the room with him, when we're playing our instruments, I'm like, oh shit, am I gonna get some secondhand smoke or something? It always makes me a little bit paranoid.
So, do you ever do edibles?
Oh god, yes. I've had many bad experiences with them, but I still keep doing it.
So I learned my lesson because I'm not too terribly experienced with edibles, but very recently I had gotten a cookie, a peanut butter cookie, and it has I have a second one here that I haven't opened. It's been like a couple months, but it's a 50 milligram THC.
God damn.
And it has 10 servings in this one cookie. And I made the mistake of smoking some from my weed pen. And then I'm like, you know what? Peanut butter sounds pretty good right now. Then I had, like, so the in my defense, the cookie, like, exploded in my hands.
How'd that happen?
Because it's just, like, one of those really crumbly, like, really dry. So I took a bite and, like, half of it snapped off. So I'm like, all right, cool. And I'm, like, cramming half of it in my face. And, like, all right, this will work, I suppose. And then I look at how much cookie's left, and it's only half. I'm like, oh no. And, of course, like, 45 minutes later, I'm standing here drooling.
Oh, God. Do you ever hallucinate when you get to that point of being high?
I try to do my best to distract myself before anything like that can occur. Because I'm even outside of the Mary Jane or the reefer, outside of that, I'm usually a fairly paranoid person.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can sit in my room all day, but I can't have the door open because I can't see it. It's behind me. That creeps me out. And like my window's partially open, and like I can see outside, and I'm consistently worried that I'm going to look over and there's just a face staring back at me.
God, that would be the worst thing.
Yeah, and like usually I'm like passively worried about that, but then like it gets worse if I'm like not distracted.
Yeah, it's like all of your fears begin to amplify when you're in that state of mind, like after eating an edible.
Well, I think for me it's not so much like, oh, it's gonna happen. It's like, God, it would be easy for that to happen. Like, because I'm on the first floor, I'm like, somebody could just walk up, you know?
Yeah, I feel like that too.
Somebody could just hang out outside. Well, I used to do this thing, so I have a fear of being alone, like totally isolated.
Yeah, I remember that was one of your fears you mentioned. That and darkness, I believe you mentioned as well. On another interview.
Yep. I think it was with David Thornton. With Art the Clown.
Oh, yes.
But I used to do it. I don't do it as often anymore. But I used to when I lived over in Portland. I would like kind of get up and like walk around the house and look at all of the windows because it's a one-story house. I'm like, God, somebody could just walk in, huh? Jeez, But, like, I don't do that if somebody else is home. It's when everybody else is gone for the night. And it's just me, and I'm like, okay.
That's why I'm afraid of trying weed at my new house, because I'm still not familiar with the layout of it. Like, I always forget about windows that are, like, in random corners. So, like, I feel like I'm just going to get paranoid eventually. God, the last time I took edibles was probably during, like, the middle of quarantine. So this was probably, like, April or May. And this is how bad my tolerance is. I took 20 milligrams of a gummy, and that was enough to set me off the edge. And I remember it was really hot that day, and my air conditioning was off.
Yeah.
Because usually when I get high, like, I feel things, like, way too intensely. So, like, cold air, just I start shivering like crazy, even though if the room's, like, 68 degrees or something. But I left the air off, and then it was really hot. And I was sweating so much. And at this point, I was basically hallucinating. Like, my body was covered in sweat, and I thought I was pissing myself for, like, 2 hours because I was just so sweaty.
So, do you, like, how familiar are you with, like, bong hits?
I've tried them a few times, and I've had even more bad experiences with those.
So I get that, like, THC based tinnitus, like the ringing in the ears and all that.
I hate that.
Damn right.
It's the worst.
But the first time I got it, I had made the sorry mistake of taking, like, 4 massive bong rips.
God damn.
Like, massive bong rips. And I'm like, okay, kind of feeling it. You know what? I'm going to stand up, go to the kitchen, and get myself some to eat. And then I walk over to the, like, my bed was on the floor and, like, right next to the door leading out. And then I just, like, fell onto my bed because, like, my balance just gave up. And I immediately got paranoid because I think about, I want to say a month prior, I had witnessed, like, one of my friend's family members have a seizure because they have a medical condition that gives them mild seizures occasionally, right? So I thought, okay, is this what a seizure is? Because I couldn't move. so I'm like,
that's,
and, like, my what's that?
That's so weird that you mentioned seizure, because that moment where I was like sweating a lot, I eventually did turn on the air because I was really hot, and the room was freezing at that point, like 20 minutes later. And then I was shaking so much, and I thought I was having a seizure. So I got up, and I was trying to walk around, but I felt so cold for some reason, and, like, my body just wouldn't stop shaking. And I was trying to, like, yell out for help. I'm like, I'm having a seizure, but, like, nothing was coming out of my mouth. It was just, like, like, gibberish. And I don't even think I was yelling that loud either. Like, my senses are just so out of whack when I get to that point.
See, I'm like, I'm really calm when I'm, like, even when I'm stoned, but then, like, when I start to panic, I'll just very calmly start to express that I'm panicking.
I kind of do that too, just to trick myself that I'm not actually panicking, but, like, deep inside.
Oh no, it's so, like, the people around me can fully understand what's going on, and so, like, when that happened, when I fell on the bed, like, my ex was across the room on her computer, and I'm laying there like, honey, honey. And she walks over, she's like, what? I'm like, can you go get Zach, please? 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 And we just go, please get him? Because, like, everybody else is, like, heavy smokers, so they know what's going on more than I do. And what I like about my old roommate is he wouldn't make fun of you for panicking. He would just calmly explain that you're being an idiot. And so he comes in and he, like, crouches next to me. He's like, hey, bud, how's it going? And I'm like, hey, man, I saw, like, one of your family members have a seizure recently. Is this a seizure? Am I having a seizure? He goes, well, for starters, you're talking, so no. I'm like, okay, yeah. He's like, we wouldn't be having this discussion if you were. He's like, how much weed did you have? I'm like, 4 massive bong hits. He's like, that's probably what did it. He's like, just lay here, maybe sleep it off.
The last time I took a bong hit was probably 2016, and I was with my friend, and we went to his friend's house, and we were smoking on the porch, and they sprinkled keef on it, and I didn't know what keef was at that time.
Oh, God.
So I took a hit of it.
Oh, shit.
And they're like, do you know that has keef in it? I'm like, what's that? And he's like, you'll see. And then like,
what's that?
And 10 seconds later, I get up, and I'm like, where's your couch at? And he's like, oh, let's go inside and turn left, and that's the living room. I'm like, okay, I need to go to sleep. And I was so fucked up. I just like fell asleep on this random guy's couch I just met on that day. And like him and my friend were
I gotta sleep this off.
Him and my friend were outside, like just talking on the porch, and I was passed out. I think his living room had a bunch of like his roommates in there, and they were playing Mario Kart, and I just sat on a couch next to them as they were like having this like Mario Kart session. I was passed out, and they were just like, what the fuck? Who is this guy?
I got invited to a barbecue a couple weeks ago, and it's a bunch, like, they're slightly older than I am, but they're all like comic book nerds and video game nerds, just like me. But we were standing around, and I'm like having a couple beers, and then they all like sit in the grass and they start like smoking weed. And I'm sitting there like, I don't know, like, I don't really know this person all that well, because I had just met them recently. Because I don't know this person well, and I don't know where I am exactly. And I'm like, and I was planning to take the bus back. And like, I'm not sure if I'll make it if I'm stoned. And I sit down, and I get past this, like, funny enough, by a guy with a huge beard and a tie-dye shirt hands me a oil pen. I'm like, cool. And I, like, you know how sometimes those get blockages?
Oh yeah, you kind of have to like
them?
take a big hit of it, and then it'll like kind of break it up a little bit.
Yeah, so it was blocked a little bit, but in that time that I'm trying to get something out of it, it had built up like a very thick cloud of smoke. And so it was one, like, obscene hit. And I, like, turn away and just, like, and I'm like, oh, shit. Like, oh, no. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to make it to the bus. Like, at least it got my phone on me. I can call a Lyft or something, or an Uber. Like, just like, but then in my haze, and I'm also still putting beers on top of it. In my haze, I hear a guy I've never met before. Like, I haven't seen him since either. But he goes, hey, he's like, where, like, what area do you live in? I tell him, he's like, oh yeah, I'm right by there, I'll give you a lift. Like, sure, person I don't know. You bet. And I had that, like, I got in his truck, and for a very split second of panic, I'm like, what if we don't go to my house? What happens if we don't make it there? And thankfully he drops me off, and I'm like immediately like, alright, have a nice night, and just...
Yeah, that's terrifying, because now imagine he just takes you just in the middle of nowhere, you're high as hell. He takes you to some field, sticks you in some random cabin. Oh my god, so many possibilities. Like, anything could have happened.
Well, I'm not. I can't remember if I've told this on previous episodes. Did I tell the New Year's Eve story?
Did you? You might.
Because that was.
I think.
So, I didn't start, like, smoking weed or even drinking until I got out of high school. Like, I was sort of the straight edge goody two shoes kid. what's weed, you know?
Didn't you get crossfaded but didn't realize it? Like, you,
Well,
I think that's. I'm trying to remember the story if it was mentioned.
so of course it's the same buddy who helped me with like the whole tinnitus thing, but we're sitting at his house and I'm stoned because I haven't been stoned before, and I'm like, instead of just like relaxing, I'm sitting there and I'm desperately trying to think of like the correct term to use for how I'm feeling. I'm like, I'm not dizzy. I'm a little bit nauseous, but I'm not dizzy. It's more like a vertigo type of deal. And through my haze, I hear my buddy go, yeah, my brother said we can go to his New Year's Eve party. And I didn't really know his brother up at that point. And so, like, I blink, and the next thing I know, I'm in the back seat of his car, and we're driving through, like, forest area, like, no street light. And I go, hey, where are we going? And the answer I get is, don't worry about it.
Oh, that's not good.
Well, the thing is, they're stoned too, but they know where they're going. And so, they're like, don't worry about it, it's fine, it's cool. Like, they're not threatening about it, they're just like, don't worry about it, man, it's fine. And we get out, and there's like a row of... You ever go so far out into, like, farming area where there's just no light other than like the houses?
Yeah, so like this happened like a couple months ago. I live in a populated place in Michigan, like outside of Detroit, and there's this place you could go to. It's called the Starless Park, or the Star Park, I believe. It's like this completely dark area in the middle of nowhere. You could just see stars everywhere in the sky. And I was high there when that happened. So that was not a good thing.
So I get out of this car. They have like the walkway lights, the kind you like stake into the ground, and it's leading down like a really long path to this guy's house, who apparently is some rich dude. That to this day I still have no fucking idea who that guy is. I've been back to that house. I still don't know who the guy is. And I turn back and it's just a wall of darkness because there's no street lights. It's just woods.
Damn.
And I'm like, okay. And I look back and everybody's walking towards the house. And my one buddy comes back. He's like, come on, we're going to the house. Like, whose house? Where are we? What the hell's going on? He's like, oh, don't worry about it. I'm like, I'm kind of worried. And, like, we walk into, like, one smaller house that's attached to the land. And I meet a group of people that I don't remember. And they're like, psyched to see me, even though I haven't seen them before. They're like, hey, this is Fresno. I'm like, hey! And they're like, everybody's like, hey, how's it going? And I'm like, I don't know who the fuck you people are. Like, we're gonna go down to, like, so-and-so's grandpa's house. I'm like, who? What? Hold on.
I would have freaked out very early on in that situation. Like, the second that your friend was like, oh, like, when you asked where he was going, and he's like,
don't worry
I would have thought, like, oh, this might be my friend of 20 years, but he's plotting something against me. I need to get out of this car.
This is it, isn't it? This is where I get Lennied, like, from Mice and Men.
This is a 20-year plan. He just is waiting for the perfect moment to drag me somewhere in the middle of the woods while I'm high.
But we walk outside, we walk down this really nice path, and we come up to this 2-story, like, really nice house, and I'm like, who the fuck owns this? Because it's not any of my friends, because we're all poor. Like, what's going on? And I walk in, and, like, some old dude's descending the stairs, and he's like, hey, how's it going? Nice to meet you. And then he turns and walks into the kitchen, and I never see him again. Because everybody's all the people I know are in the living room. And I'm sitting there, and I'm just like, sober up, sober up, sober up, sober up. Just trying to, like, come on. And they're, like, playing pool, and everybody's having blasts, and I'm just panicking. And then I look over, and there's my buddy's brother. He's walking in holding a case of those, like, Smirnoff flavored drinks,
Mm.
where it's not just vodka, but it's like peach flavored,
Oh,
whatever.
yeah, those glass bottles that they have.
Yeah, they're like the size of beer bottles.
Yeah.
And I decide, you know what? I'll have one or two of those. So 6 of them later, I'm like annihilated. And at some point, I clearly remember they had ordered pizza. So I'm standing kind of by the pizza, where I'm trying to look like I want pizza, but I don't want too much pizza. I don't want to be that guy. I remember leaning on the buffet, looking into my buddy's brother's eyes, and I go, "Hey man, this is the first party I've ever been invited to. Am I doing it right? Am I awkward enough to be at this party?" And he's like, "You're doing just fine." I'm like, "Cool, I'm gonna go sit down." But that whole night, I'm like, you look out the windows and it's just even more darkness. So I'm like, all right, cool. I'm somewhere outside of space and time right now. Cool, awesome.
God, those moments are
And
so terrifying, but there's something I like about them because like it's kind of this like nightmare fuel. Like I like being scared sometimes, and I feel like being high in some situation you're unfamiliar with is the best way to go about it. There's so much creepy shit that your mind comes up with.
Well, like, especially, like, I think you and I are in the same boat of, like, we watch a lot of horror movies, so it's like, here's where I get sacrificed to the blood god. Here's where it's gonna happen. Here it comes.
I feel like I get close to those points sometimes, like something will just, like somebody will say something, and it'll just set me off for the rest of the night. Like for example, where are we going? Oh, you'll don't worry about it. Like I've had so many of those situations where like somebody just says something that's very simple, but I'm like, oh, what did he mean by that? Like, I have to like analyze every little word that's said.
Well, like, usually I'm just like, alright, I won't start to panic until I need to leave, I won't panic. That's why I asked the one guy, I'm like, am I doing this right? Am I being awkward enough at this party? Is this going my way?
Am I being a good party goer?
Well, I think the real question I wanted to ask him was like, am I acting weird? Like, am I standing in the corner staring at people? Is that what's happening? Because I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, I've tried to follow up with the buddy in question, and I still haven't gotten a straight answer as to where the hell we were. Like I said, been back there. I went back to the smaller house, not the 2-story one, and I still have no clue who lives in the 2-story house.
There's something creepy.
One of these days, I'm just gonna take the bus out. And then take the bus out there. Who are you? Where am I?
Just some imagination the whole time.
Yeah. I got slipped like peyote, and we were just partying like in the park or something.
Partying with mannequins.
Oh, God. That would be terrifying to see from the outside.
That will be just staring into you. Like, I don't know if you've played Condemned before, but there's this. Yeah, that part with the mannequins is following you slowly. Mm-hmm. Oh God.
Well, I have this image in my head of like walking by a park, and there's just one dude alone with like 5 mannequins, and he's just casually hanging out with them. Hey man, am I doing this party all right? Am I being too awkward at this party? Just talk to a mannequin.
I feel like that's something I would do at some point.
I know what I'm doing for Halloween this year. Oh God. But I think with that, we are just over 2 hours. I think. Wait, how far have we gone so far? Like, video games, Mark Duplass's dick, the aesthetic of the inside of a Blockbuster, and then finally weed.
This is like my mind just like in podcast form, like just all over the place. This is my thought process.
Whenever I, like, for every interview, I just, like, there's this image in my head of, like, I'm behind the wheel of a car, and I'm just swerving as hard as I can.
Off a cliff.
Yeah. It's just the image of a car, like, going through a guardrail off of a cliff. And it never hits the ground, it's just...
Yeah, at this part, the car's brand is flying through the air. It's crashed off the guardrail, but it's just gliding.
It's flying, and it's kind of smoking, but it's not on fire.
It's doing a couple of spins, some barrel rolls.
But somehow I'm still swerving inside the car while it's flying through the air. I think with that, we will call this interview to a close. I have had a blast talking to you, Anomaly. This has been fantastic.
Yes, this was amazing. I loved every second of it.
Wonderful party people at home. Thank you for sticking around to the end. Thank you for listening to me talk about Mark Duplass's dick. Again. The
recurring theme.
That's the whole reason behind the podcast, is to discuss it. But thank you for sticking around to the end. There will be a link to Anomaly Analysis's channel in the description of this video. Is there a video in mind that you would like to have a link to in this?
Probably my most recent one that came out yesterday, the El Presidor one.
Okie doke. I will put that in the description below. But I thank you again, Anomaly, for coming on. I had a blast talking to you.
Thank you so much for having me. This is such a pleasure.
And I will see all of you next time.
Have an excellent night.